The Miami Dolphins have started to trim down their roster closer to 53 players. We'll take a look at the initial wave of Dolphins cuts. We'll also look at Dolphins injury news, major updates following the preseason finale. And to round out today's show, could Miami bring back a Dolphin that was with this team for a while but was released last year on the waiver wire? Loaded show. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today. But make sure you are subscribed, because as Miami trims down their roster from 90 to 53 players over the next 48 hours, we will have you covered the entire way. So subscribe, join the Dolphins Today family, and let's get to 72,200 subscribers. So the most surprising cut in the initial wave is corner Mike Hilton. This was announced earlier this morning, and I will be honest, I'm a little bit shocked. And I got to give some major props to Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly, who had this the entire way. I have disagreed with Omar quite a bit in terms of my thought process on him being a player that was likely going to start. He was listed as an initial starter on the first unofficial Dolphins depth chart. He was the most, experienced corner on this roster, and I thought there was a real chance that he did get the starting nickel job, but he doesn't even make the roster. So when you start to think of where this Dolphins cornerback room is now, I think your three starters are really starting to shape up here. You have Storm Duck, you have Jack Jones, and then you have the fifth-round pick out of Florida, Jason Marshall Jr., who has really just blossomed over the last week and a half in that nickel position for the Miami Dolphins. Unless the Dolphins add a corner via a trade or a signing, that is how things probably will line up in the cornerback room week one against the Colts. And what a rise for Jason Marshall Jr. I mean, he has been terrific in his nickel duties over the past couple of weeks, which is why Miami feels pretty confident about going away from Mike Hilton. We'll see if it ultimately works out for them. Now, I don't know if another team will try to pick up Hilton, or maybe Miami will try to get him on their practice squad or keep him on speed dial in case an injury occurs or Jason Marshall Jr. struggles out of the gate. But either way, Mike Hilton released, Jason Marshall Jr., you're starting nickel. Are you surprised that Mike Hilton got cut? I certainly am. Type Y for yes or type N for no. I would be typing my Ys. The first cut that the Dolphins actually made was in the running back room with running back Aaron Shampklin. Now, this to me comes as no surprise. The only reason why Aaron Shampklin was ultimately signed was because, Alexander Mattison was out for the year with a neck injury. So he does not make the team, even though he did have a pretty good preseason, average 7.7 yards per carry over 9 carries. Miami also cut Mike Boone, the other running back that the Dolphins signed. Now, once again, I'm going to act as if this is no surprise, because by cutting Boone, you leave these three starting running backs, obviously with Alec Ingold. And Boone and Shampklin were both signed after Achane and Madison's injury to just provide depth for the preseason games so they didn't have to run Jaylen Wright and Ollie Gordon the entire time. But when this group is fully healthy, Achane is obviously RB1. We're seeing a lot more of Ollie Gordon, and Jaylen Wright is going to be in their RB2 as well. So not surprised by the Dolphins doing this, but you could see a running back added to the roster. Why do I say that? It's because Jaylen Wright is actually week to week with a lower body injury. This was announced by Mike McDaniel following the preseason finale on Saturday evening. We know Wright left the joint practice with the Jaguars on Thursday and gingerly limped off the field, and then was seen with a compression sleeve on his leg in that preseason finale when he was standing on the bench. And I'll be honest, I'm not surprised they released Mike Boone and Aaron Shampklin, but I do want to make the note that Miami is very, very thin at running back. I like those three RBs a ton, but Achane's dealing with a calf injury. Wright is hurt in week to week. So the only truly healthy running back you have right now on the offseason roster is Ollie Gordon, which is why I would have to imagine Miami will either look to claim a running back that gets released over the next 48 hours, or they will ultimately bring someone into their practice squad and have them on standby in case they need to be activated to the 53-man in the game day roster in that first game of the season. But speaking of De'Von Achane, it does feel as if he will be ready to go for week one. McDaniel said that initially when the injury was announced about a week ago, but once Mike announced it as a calf injury, I was skeptical because you can't mess around with those. Those are serious, and if you don't let him heal, could ultimately turn into a potential torn Achilles. Well, McDaniel said that Achane has had no setbacks, looks forward to getting him on the practice field in the next week or so before week one against the Colts, and he should be ready to roll. So hopefully disaster averted with De'Von Achane. He is such a pivotal piece of this Dolphins offense, so if he's healthy, that's a good thing, and I think we'll start to see an Achane, Ollie Gordon 1-2 punch in that running back room early in the year. All right, another injury update. No Liam Eichenberg, and this might make Dolphins fans happy. I can't say anything too crazy here, but McDaniel said that he doesn't foresee him being an immediate return to the roster, but it does not seem season long. Liam Eichenberg has been on the PUP all preseason, offseason long, and he is likely going to start there. Remember, if you are put onto the PUP before training camp and never get taken off, you can remain on the PUP throughout the regular season and be activated anytime after week 4. So that is probably what's going to happen here for Eichenberg. If you are active, then put on the PUP or IR, that could end your season. But since he was on the PUP, he can just stay there and his season will not be ended. Someone who will return probably halfway through the year and be a key depth piece on the offensive line. Speaking of the O-line, couple cuts here. Jackson Carman has been released as of filming this. Also, Jalen McKenzie has been released as well. So, couple cuts there on the offensive line. I'm not going to hone in on those two too much. Both stink and both happy that I'm not going to see them play for the Dolphins again, hopefully. Back to some positive injury news. Jordyn Brooks, who also left the joint practice last Thursday with Jacksonville, that injury has been described as very minor, and he will not miss any real time. He did not play in the preseason finale for Miami. Obviously a smart decision if he did have just a minor injury, but as long as it is minor and he's going to be ready to roll for week one, he is the signal caller. He is the leader of that defense, especially in the middle. Second year with Anthony Weaver. Good to see Jordyn Brooks be healthy and be ready for a big second season. More to come here in a second, but shout out to Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports platform I play every day, and it's so easy. All you do is pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, go more or less, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. And with week 1 on the horizon, get in on the action, whether it's Saquon, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. But we also got week 1 of college football this upcoming weekend as well. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. Also take advantage of the special PrizePicks is offering, more than half a passing yard for the season opener in professional football. Cowboys, Eagles. Pair that up with any entry to make some money potentially. I got more than Flacco passing yards and more than Demario Douglas receiving yards. But just join me and the millions of others on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Back to some injury news for Miami. No Jason Sanders issue after not kicking in the preseason finale and leaving pregame warmups. Mike McDaniel said it was a minor injury for Sanders, and Jason actually told Mike that he would be willing to kick extra points but did not want to do any field goals. McDaniel said, don't worry about it. We'll practice on our 2-point conversions, which they went 1 for 2 in that regard. But once again, thank goodness. And it's been mostly positive injury news on today's show, especially on Achane, Jordyn Brooks, and Sanders, 3 pivotal players on this roster. Sanders going down would be detrimental because even if he just missed 2 weeks, you would have to then carry another kicker or place him on IR and keep him out for 4 games. So it would have just created some what was it called? Jumping through hoops. I guess that's the term they use when it comes to the kicker department, which would not have been ideal, and it would have taken a 53-man roster spot away from another player. And we are going to talk about who the Dolphins could claim here in just a second to round out today's show. Quick little update on one player, because this came in while we're filming this video. Dolphins just released defensive lineman Ben Stille. So there's another cut for the Dolphins roster. This is why you subscribe, because we'll make sure you're covered on everything, folks, even while we're in the middle of filming a video. But let's round out the show by saying who the Dolphins could claim. And we will have a video go out either Wednesday morning or Tuesday afternoon about players that did get waived that the Dolphins could claim. Last year, they claimed wide receiver Grant DeBose. I would have to imagine they try to claim another player this year, especially with big needs at 4 different positions. You look at cornerback, offensive tackle depth, running back depth potentially, as well as a tight end potentially being added. These are the 4 positions. If Miami ultimately claims a player, I would forecast that player being a position of. One specifically I want to mention happened over the weekend with the Cleveland Browns. Not our good old friend Tyler Huntley, but Nick Needham, the former UDFA Swiss Army knife defensive back that could play safety, that could play nickel. This is a player that we know Chris Grier likes, and with how the Dolphins secondary is shaping form, could be a perfect addition back to this roster. Because he can play safety, he can play cornerback, can play nickel. Just a versatile piece on that back end that has familiarity with the Dolphins organization as well as in the Anthony Weaver system, because he was with the Dolphins last year throughout the preseason training camp, but then got waived on roster cutdown day. I could see Miami bringing him back, and if I'll be honest, unless I see a cornerback better than him waived in the next 24 hours, I would probably say that would be the most likely option and best option for Miami. But if you're looking at the offensive line, how about La'el Collins, the veteran offensive lineman? He was waived over the weekend by the Dallas Cowboys. He can play guard. He can play tackle. This is a veteran, versatile offensive line guy and would be great offensive line depth, in my opinion, with this backup O-line group being so horrific, and you see players already getting released like Jackson Carman, like Jalen McKenzie. You have Liam Eichenberg starting on the pup. Larry Borum is your top swing tackle right now. Daniel Brunskill is your top interior offensive lineman depth. Could be beat out by Braden Daniels. I could see La'el Collins being an addition for the Miami Dolphins. I won't predict it, but I will say that it is a possible addition for the Miami Dolphins. So keep an eye on that. And before we close out the show, there were a lot of cuts that happened over the weekend. Name a player that you saw get cut that you'd like to see Miami Dolphins claim. These claims will all be processed on early Wednesday afternoon. So let me know who you want the Dolphins to ultimately claim. A sneaky name to keep your eye on. Patriots tight end Jaheim Bell. He was a 7th-round pick from Florida State in 2024 draft. He is an athletic, rangy tight end that never got it going in New England, but could be a player the Dolphins claim, because what does Mike McDaniel value a ton in his system with tight ends? Athletic movers. Bell is certainly that. If the Dolphins do not claim him, I would definitely be interested on adding Jaheim Bell to the practice squad, especially with how weak this tight end room actually is. And as the Dolphins continue to make roster moves, we will have you covered. So subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later today with another video. Go Fins.